Thank you. Yeah, recording in progress. Super. Okay, so thank you everyone for spending the canonical lunch hour with us here in our panel series, Management for Me, You, and the New. We have a discussion with new GIS managers, and I'm hoping that we're all going to get a lot out of this. The way that we're going to work through this is we're going to kind of be cognizant of our time. And so we're going to have like a little timer around here in this area of my screen to keep everyone on track. So again, thank you so much for coming. And without further ado, let's get to it. Our first question is going to be, it's going to be round robin style, which means each of the panelists will be answering. And it is, what is your GIS origin story into management? So we are doing a reverse alpha timing for this, and go and I'll hit the button.
I guess that's me then. We're going last name, right? All right. So I'm Nick Willett. I'm currently the GIS manager for the city of Euless. I started as a GIS analyst in the Marine Corps in 2007. Spent 5 years active duty overseas for a lot of that, Japan, Korea, eventually deployed to Afghanistan. After I got out of the military, I went to land surveying, both the government for private land surveying, a lot of property and utility surveying stuff. Eventually getting back into utilities, water and sewer utilities surveying, and then mapping those with GIS. And then coming over into management. Actually, I'm almost at a year. It'll be a year next month that I have been with the city of Euless. Yeah, how I got into that was quite an interesting story. The previous GIS manager here was one of my teachers at Tarrant County College for several years, and I kept up a correspondence with him for a while and ran into him at a couple conferences. And last year he said he was retiring and wanted to know if I wanted to take over the job. So that's kind of how I ended up here. And it worked out pretty well. It was very quick, a lot faster than I thought it was going to be. And it's been a great experience, but it's been a little bit all over the place. Aside from that, my education, I have a couple of GIS related degrees, associate's degrees, certificates. I have a bachelor in applied arts and science with GIS. And I have a master's degree in information science, which is actually a library degree, but a lot of it is information systems related. So databases and schemas and metadata and all that fun stuff. And I'm not going any higher than that, despite the fact that my wife keeps asking me to get a PhD. I don't need it. I don't want it. So I will stay with the master's degree. And that's pretty much that in a nutshell. It's been a wild ride for the last 15 years or so. So that's it for me.
Thanks so much, Nick.
All right, I believe I'm next. So, hey everyone, my name is Sarah Thompson. I'm kind of crashing this Series-Sept, Texas meeting. I'm actually based out of Arizona and I work for the Arizona Department of Transportation. I've been in this management position for 2 years, and my background in schooling is actually in biology. I have a bachelor's in biological sciences. I was focused on ecology. I kind of wanted to do an intersection of science and talking with people who don't know a lot about science. So I got a business minor to kind of help, understand both sides of that. And then through my biology degree, a lot of people suggested I get a GIS certificate to help with the biological work. So that's what I did. I graduated with the bachelor's in biology, a minor in business, and then this GIS certificate. After I graduated, I was looking for work and was just kind of casting a wide net and found a position at a pavement surveying company doing GIS work as a GIS tech. I figured, money's money. Let me just give this a shot. And I ended up kind of falling into this transportation GIS world. For the first year I was there, I was doing purely GIS tech work. Then that was right before COVID. Then my manager got let go. So I was kind of unofficially a manager for the second year that I was at that company, kind of directing people, but no official direct reports. Then after the second year, I began looking for a new position, wanted to get an official manager title, work somewhere a little bit bigger. And I found this opportunity at the Department of Transportation. And now looking back at it, the way that position opened up is they were doing some restructuring and split what was originally one team into two teams and needed to backfill some managerial positions. So that's how they made space for that role. And I've been on for 2 years and it's gone insanely smoothly for I don't know what reason, but I've really enjoyed it and I'm happy to be here.
Thanks so much, Sarah.
Right, I think I'm up next in the middle. So my GIS origin story, like similar story, I had gone to school for engineering degrees and actually thought I would become a professional engineer. I took the EIT test and was on that pathway. And while I was in graduate school, I had an internship with FedEx actually, because I was going to school in Mississippi. And so they were like a local employer that was a great opportunity. And I wound up working in their operations research group, helping to calculate origin destination matrices for them, and kind of was like, well, maybe maps aren't so bad. And just really got lucky. It's been over 22 years now. I was at an ASPRS conference and met some folks from Esri. And at the time I thought, well, they're a software company. They're not going to hire somebody that only took Fortran programming in school. But they did hire me. They gave me a job. And so I worked in their professional services group for a really long time. And it was about 8 years ago or so that I was supporting the solutions team and kind of had this little internal nudge to see what it was like on the outside, and started to, kind of take the leap outside of that first job that I had, and stumbled a little bit. I'll say like the deeper stories maybe a little bit interesting, but wound up finding an opportunity with the city of San Marcos. And I've been here for about 3.5 years. They didn't have a GIS manager for a long time. I think they were absent one for about 1.5 years. And so it's been a little bit like a startup. The folks that have joined me to develop the program and the folks that were here, really strong knit group. It's been really fun and challenging. So yeah, definitely glad to be here. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you so much, Jess. Amy, it's you. You got it. You got it.
Okay, well, just like so many of these other lovely folks, I stumbled into GIS. I was going to school for geology, and our professor had us mapping in this software called ArcMap. We had to put our survey data in there, and she explained, you have to deliver a lot of your professional work in Excel, and you'll have to use ArcMap. But don't worry, there'll be these GIS people, if you're lucky, that can help you with it. So that kind of tweaked my curiosity, because I did love rocks, but I definitely loved the idea of being creative with maps and seeing the world differently, not to quote a certain vendor, but I just love the idea of exploring data, the organization of databases, diving into information. So I ended up not finishing with the geology degree, but switching my bachelor's into geography, and I got a certificate in GIS. So I was very lucky. My program had an Esri-based certification program, and that set me up for my jobs really well. And so I started, like a lot of people, editing data, georeferencing, dropping points, dropping lines, creating parcel data using topology. And I was very fortunate to be able to move into different jobs that allowed me to do like geospatial analysis and bigger, like kind of start project management type projects. And I really enjoyed the work. Whatever I got to do, I just loved it. So, I had my hands in a lot of different types of work, but I ended up in DC for a while as a defense contractor, kind of away from the Esri world. Came back after I had my daughter, came back to Houston and worked with more GIS, Esri-based GIS. And I became a manager with the city of LaPorte, which is a very small municipality that has 2 roles. And that was just such a great introduction into all the things that GIS can do for a city. I loved all the projects I got to work on. And then I ended up switching to a GIS supervisor role for public works, which allowed me to have a bigger team actually, and move more into application development and utility management. So I ended up taking a management role here in this location. So now here I am again, a manager, and that's kind of my origin story.
Thank you so much, Amy. Meg, best for last. Best for last is Meg.
All right. So I'm Megadaya. I am the GIS supervisor at the city of Frisco. So I'm not a manager, so I'm in a very esteemed company here, you know, being the supervisor and everything. My origin story kind of starts out pretty much the same way I fell into GIS, essentially. I was, according to my parents, supposed to be a nurse. That did not pan out. I actually was working at the city of Euless as a library tech and heard about GIS and I actually got to meet David Allen and he's the one who kind of kicked the door open essentially to GIS. And then after that, I transferred to UNT, met Bruce Hunter, and then basically just totally busted the gates wide open to GIS from there. And then from then on, it was pretty much sounds like your standard story. I started out as a GIS intern for the city of the Colony. Worked there for about a year or so, or a year and a half. Did a very, very short stint for an oil and gas company. I think it was like maybe 3 months. And then after that, I went to start working for the city of Frisco as a GIS tech. So, I mean, I've been with the city of Frisco for about 13 and a half years now. And I've basically worked my way up from a GIS tech all the way now to a GIS supervisor. So that's my origin story. Pretty short and sweet, to be honest. So.
Well, we appreciate it. We're gonna go alpha. We're gonna go alpha down. Like Sarah said, we're really testing our ABC knowledge here. So this question is for everyone, and it is the number of employees in your shop. So if it's just you, it's a 1, and if it's not just you, it's a number greater than 1. And it's like your shop is in like your team, not like the global shop. For the distributed teams, All right, that's it. I'm gonna stop talking now. I hate talking.
Okay, you said alpha down, right? So I guess I kick it off. So I supervise a total of 3 people, 2 analysts and 1 tech. As far as the overall team, I know you said you didn't want global down, but we only have like around 10 people in our GIS team. So that's a GIS manager, that's me. There's 2 GIS architects, a GIS data coordinator, and 2 senior analysts. And then, like I said, 2 analysts and then a tech. So that's my shop.
Okay, so I think I'm next. My team, it consists of 4 GIS supervisors, 4 senior analysts, 4 GIS analysts, 11 senior GIS techs. I never added the numbers up till today. It's 24. It is 24. And that's why I'm a little bit overwhelmed as a new manager. So.
So you're managing 24 people?
I'm the 24th. Yeah. So gotta manage myself.
Okay, I'm sure there will be questions. Yeah, so again, like I do a quick timeout in the chat, y'all. If you got questions, throw them in the chat. We've got a bunch of questions, right? But it's like, whatever, the gospel according to me. So if you guys have things are interesting to you and you want to hear more from a certain person, at them, ask the question, and we'll keep rolling. All right, next, Jess.
So in the GIS team within the IT department at the city, we have 6 full-time staff. That's including me. So I'm responsible for 5. That's 3 analysts, 1 technician, 1 administrator, like a system administrator. And then we also have an intern position. So it's like 5 plus an intern kind of thing. But the city has done a really nice, they've invested a lot in GIS. So we're really lucky.
All right, and I'm next. And Amy, that sounds like you're actually a director to me. Just wanted to give you that kudos. So my team is small. So we have 1 senior GIS analyst. We have 1, it was a GIS technician role, and we promoted it recently to a program manager role. And then we have a transportation intern, which typically, well, we hope that they have GIS skills. This young lady that we have in the intern role does have GIS skills, but they could be, say, an engineer or whatever, and we kind of have to train them up. And then because we're a Department of Transportation, we have engineers in training rotating through all of the sections. So every, month or so, I'll have a random EIT come through my section that I have to manage for, say, 2 to 4 weeks. But we can't really get them up to speed on too much. But technically, I do manage them when they're with me.
All you now.
I envy all of you. I have just me. I'm the only GIS person in the city. That being said, I do have a few people in various departments that are using GIS to the point where I've got them, with ArcPro installed on their computers, and they're actually making their own stuff, which is great. I've got some people in police, public works, and our engineer department, slowly getting them involved. So, but as of right now, it is just me as the actual official only GIS person.
Okay, so the next questions we're gonna have, we're gonna do like a pick 3 kind of deal with 1 minute. Again, audience members, keep those questions rolling in. And this is the first question we got on the list is what kind of GIS technician stuff do you still do? So, panelists, who wants to out themselves?
I will volunteer. I love to map. So even though it might be a simple map, a complicated map, I will grab one of those requests every now and then just to make myself happy.
So that's totally cool. I mean, does your team appreciate that? Do you guys do like a who wore it best, or kind of, describe like, hey, I really liked so-and-so's map this week, blah, 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 that kind of stuff?
We are moving from ArcMap to ArcPro, so that's a big part of the transition. There is maybe why I'm taking some of those requests. Is I do want to get the maps up to a certain level of branding. So sometimes I'll take a map because I want to, but sometimes it's because, hey, I want this done a certain way, and then it's kind of out there for other people to go grab that project and just copy it or make it better, right? Make it better. I do love to give kudos to my team whenever I can. So that's a big plus.
You gotta scrape off that ArcMap deal from a map. You can see it. It's oh man, it beeped right at me. Okay, time's up. All right, Sarah, let's see if there we go. Sarah, you're on.
Yeah, I try to do a little bit of tech work still, mostly map making or getting data for people. And then I try to do as much ArcGIS Online stuff as I can, just keep fresh with that. Don't let those skills slip. So making dashboards and web maps and that. But it brought to mind, the question of, as managers, what is our obligation to delegate things to our team? What is our obligation to get involved and keep our knowledge relevant? And then for me, and maybe this is a question to managers or people in the chat could respond, I do want to take on requests, but then feeling like I slow down the request because as a manager, we're dealing with a lot of other things that take up our time. So, picking the right thing to get involved in or picking the right thing to delegate is a constant challenge or a constant game in my head of, when do I get involved? When do I not? And when do I let my team shine? And usually I lean towards let the team shine and they can take it on.
So good, so good. Yeah, I mean, so as a person, right, one of the biggest pet peeves on me is when you have a manager that refuses to do any of the work, right? So you have a simple task and do this simple task that they themselves could do in 5 minutes or whatever, right? But they got to make a whole production out of it, send nasty emails and whatever. That's horrible. Don't do that. Not saying anyone does that. I'm just, I just want to do that shout out of whatever slights you have received as a GIS technician analyst, don't propagate those forward. Be better, right? And I love it, Sarah, that you're thinking about these kind of things, because it's this self-critical piece that sometimes we forget of not only are we a person, right, but now we have people that we are responsible for, and we gotta build them up, we gotta coach them. So that's great. Meg, please save me from myself.
Awesome. As far as GIS tech work that I still do, I do a little bit of everything, and that's mostly just to assist the team since I'm still taking on, like I said, I'm a supervisor, not necessarily a manager. So there's a lot of administrative stuff that I don't really have to do. I'm not really responsible for. And so because I'm kind of in that middle ground, I still do some GIS stuff. On occasion, I will edit some data as it comes in. assuming that the bandwidth on my staff, if they're too busy to take on something, I'll step in and help take care of that stuff. As far as something that I still do that I'm, as far as I know, I'm the only one that's doing, is I still do, I still check legal descriptions for zoning cases. And so I do I traverse courses still. And I'm here like, that should have been something I should have let go a long time ago. And I just never delegated out, which, by the way, is one of the hardest things I've learned so far as being in the supervisory role, is delegation. I have a hard time with it.
Man, Kogo, that is OG technician stuff. And as much as I love to hate on ArcMap, if we can all agree, the one thing that ArcMap will just blow ArcGIS Pro out of the water on, it's the Kogo. It's the Kogo. Bring back ArcMap Kogo, bring back those 32 bits, downgrade it to 16 bits. I don't care. It's so bad in Pro. Jack, I love you. Please fix Kogo. Thank you. Okay, so we got some audience questions. We got some audience questions coming in. We got them. We're keeping on track. I'm not forgetting about them. They're on the list. We got some other cool ones, right? I think we'll spur some more conversations. So we're going to go through, and then we'll swing on back to our audience questions. So again, this is going to be a pick three. And this question is again for about a minute, maybe a minute and a half, right? If you got to talk a little bit more about it, because it's a sausage making thing that we all kind of love anyway. And so it is, what role does automation play in your shop? So who would like to talk about this? Oh man, no one wants to talk about automation. Jess, there we go.
I'll go. Sorry, I couldn't find like
go.
the raise your hand button. We use automation quite a bit for things in our department to like send reports automatically from systems that we've built in the GIS that manage work. A great example of that is our 311 system. We've implemented Citizen Problem Reporter and then tweaked it to better match our needs. And then we've got Python scripts that run in the background to help people manage that work better, because it can get lost with everything else they have doing. One thing I thought of as I was preparing for this that has kind of been interesting for us is we've started to move some of our scripts into attribute rules so that we can reduce our management overhead of Python and actually make it easier to get better data or complete data as people are working in there. So shout out to attribute rules. I've got Danielle on our team is really into them and helping to transform how we do work. So yeah, that's it.
Nick, have at it.
Yeah, so as far as automation goes, I have automation, but it's manually automated, which is really weird. So we have a lot of scripts and obviously some old model builders that we still use for packaging data, uploading it to our data download portals. I've been in the process of trying to upgrade that. We switched over to Enterprise 11 a few months ago, which has been a whole hassle. And it's not as functional as 10.9.1 was, and I kind of miss it, but there's no going back now. So yeah, trying to get all that stuff automated has been a challenge, just trying to figure out how everything works, especially because a lot of it before I came in was all based off of file geodatabases, and now I've got enterprise geodatabases, so I don't need to automate as much as I used to. That's just automatically saved in, which is great. The only thing I have automated that actually works properly is the database compression scripts, which I have been playing with to make that run every week. And luckily I've got it down to where it runs the whole thing in about 5 minutes, which is fantastic, which is great because downtime is a huge issue for that. If our services go down for 30 seconds, the city manager will call me immediately. And it happens every single time I've shut it down. So automation definitely helps.
Meg, is that your hand raised from last time, or is this hand raised for this time?
I think I accidentally double clicked that. My bad. But if you want me to answer it, I can. City Frisco, we have a lot of integrations, and to be honest, whenever a new project comes in, whenever we're working with a third-party vendor, or even just a request from any of our departments for some sort of GIS implementation, the first thing we basically ask is, how can we automate this, or is there a process to automate this? It's basically one of the basic questions we ask. And so as much as I'd like to go into the details, I don't actually personally do the automation. We have 2 GIS architects, which I am very happy to give all the credit to, because they are the ones who do the automating magic for the city of Frisco. And I am so happy we have them. So consider me incredibly lucky.
Love it, love it. Okay, so I think this goes well into the next question. I'm off script now, and that's where I shine, and that's where like I burn into the sun like an Icarus. And that is okay. So in terms of automation, right? Meg's like, yeah, we got big brain people on that. And Nick's like, yeah, I'm the big brain person on that. So in terms of like structured learning, continuous education, on the spectrum of GIS analysts or like the whatever, everyone can cook, everyone can program, everyone should learn how to program, right? I know there's like a belief system attached to that for some people, myself included. I'm a zealot on the everyone can cook side. So that's going to be the next question is in your shop, right? What does structured learning look like? And what continuous education, what resources are you providing to your team? And how are you encouraging them to do that kind of stuff? Once upon a time, I was a GIS manager, was not the best one, right? But one of the things that like I did, and I was pretty happy and proud of doing, is that I asked all my employees to put half a day on their calendar every week. I've heard it called Google time, but the idea is like 4 hours, whatever, do whatever you want as long as it deals with learning and tinkering and demoing and just be better and give yourself opportunities that maybe the day-to-day work that you do doesn't represent. So that's kind of how I implemented it at my shop back in the day. So feel free, who wants to jump in? We're gonna take 3. We're gonna take another 3 on this.
Oh,
Sarah,
No, Amy went off mute first. Go ahead.
sorry. I don't know where the raise hand button is. Oh, I should find that. Sorry, but that's been a big part of what we're doing right now in our group, because we've moved from the geometric network to the utility network, editing in ArcMap and editing in ArcPro. So it's 2 huge transitions. And then on top of that, just the publishing of the data and how that interacts with our applications is also something that we're relearning all of that. And so this has been a real challenge, but I think it's something that everyone faces at some point or the other. We just get to face it all together at one time. So that's been my struggle, is trying to find educational opportunities for utility network specifically. There's just not a lot of vendors that offer that. We tried the customized route through Esri. It was okay. We tried the customized route through our vendor that did our migration. It was okay, but there's just a huge gap there. And so at the end of the day, for us, it's falling back on testing and working together, Teams meetings, small group sessions, documentation, and figuring it out. You know, we have people that have been doing this for a very long time, editing geometry, but of a different model. And so we know we can figure it out. So we just keep pushing forward. Just keep pushing forward through all the challenges. And then with ArcPro, I lean a lot on free resources on YouTube. There's a lot of really good professionals that are putting their content out there that will offer downloads for data, and they're just technically sound information. And so we have at the city a lot of resources to train our staff, but there's really even better resources sometimes that are free. And so we give our staff, I give my staff 3 to 4 hours a week right now during this transition to just train on whatever they need to train. And they kind of know what their next training element is, but we try to talk about it with our supervisors and kind of keep that an ongoing discussion so that we're always challenging ourselves, because there's just so much to learn.
thanks so much, Amy. Sarah, you got this?
Yeah, so we also do a typical 4 hours a week, and that's, 10% of their time should be spent on professional development. And our culture is kind of whatever they want to focus on. So my senior analyst, he probably wants to be focusing on building his programming skills, whereas our GIS program manager, he probably wants to be focusing on project management skills and that sort of thing. So we also rely on a lot of free resources. We have the LinkedIn Learning connection, and so seeing what they have available there. We also, of course, have the Esri training, and then whatever free tutorials might be online, or if someone runs into a problem, then they have that time to research it themselves and figure out, oh, how do I do that? And I've been doing that a lot with ArcGIS Online, me being still feeling like a bit of a newbie at it, like, oh, how do I do this arcade pop-up? And giving myself the time to work on that. So I guess in summary, informally, but we do have that culture of encouraging them to spend at least 10% of their time on development in whatever way makes them feel the most passionate.
Meg, is that hand? Is that a
Yeah,
correct hand?
that was an actual raise of hand. Yes. To echo Sarah's sentiment, we do have the same structure of where we want our staff to basically set aside some time for personal development, and that could be anything, whether it's GIS focused or IT focused, because we are in the IT department. If it's project management focused, any topic that really can be applied to your work or just personal development, we encourage. We do send folks to conferences and whatnot. There is something that we've kind of been toying around with the idea of, and that's more for all of our end users within the city, like Power GIS users and whatnot. And that's kind of like holding an education session type of webinar or something like that. Our IT department actually does that whenever they're planning to roll out new tech. They'll introduce like a handful of what they call IT insiders, new tech that's going on in IT or that we're planning to roll out. We're thinking of actually doing something for GIS and showing them just basic things within GIS if they're a power user, etc. So I don't know if that's what you really meant about training, if you meant like formalized training, but just something interesting.
Great. Okay, so we're going to do another round robin, and then we're going to dive into our audience questions. So audience, right? If you got questions, now's the time. And then panelists as well, right? If you're not getting the voice time or whatever, I would wholeheartedly recommend like doing the word vomit from fingers to keyboard on your takes on all these things as well. And we can probably curate some of that chat as well as like this is stuff we talked about. So you don't have to keep your piece. You can let your piece out in the chat. Okay, so this is a reverse alpha. Here we go. It's gonna be real hard. And try to keep it 45 seconds or less. And it is the least, now that you're a manager, right? Now that you're a super, now that you're running a program, what is the least expected workflow that you do frequently or is tedious, right? It's like, hey, I'm a manager now, and it's like, what? And like, I'm doing it, and that's the thing that I'm doing. So that's kind of what I'm trying to capture with this question. I'm gonna turn myself off now.
All right, I guess that starts with me. It's kind of hard to say because I have to do literally all of it. But I will say a lot of that stuff, like the traverses, I do the traverses every week. Every time we get a development case comes in, I have to do a COGO tools for that. Updating our property ownership for the city every month is a process that really should be someone else doing. But I'm the only person that can do it, so I do it. A lot of that kind of low level stuff. We have some maps I have to make every week, some exhibits for development that are the same map, just with a different polygon shape every month for every project, but it is the same template, the same 8.5 by 11 map. So those are a lot of things that I think normally a team of 3 or 4 or two people, someone would be supervising and scheduling that kind of stuff, and someone will be doing that work. So yeah, that's for me.
Yeah, I don't know. Nothing really, I guess, yeah, I don't feel too much of my job as tedious stuff. There are occasional, like, maybe silly forms that, like, this is really what we have to do. But, like, who's in the office today? Thankfully, we got rid of that form. But yeah, maybe the most tedious thing that we're working on it, and it's a lot better now, but hosting our data on ArcGIS Online for other people to use once per year. So that saves me and my team a lot of time just exporting the data and sending someone a copy 5 times a day. So that's my answer. Not a good one, but
Jess, it's on you.
Yes, I'm here. I'm ready. Same. I find the HR forms very tedious, and I fill out more of them than I expected to. Dealing with any kind of budgeting tool. So the city uses Tyler Munis. Those of you who know, you know, and it's. And then the other thing, like as a manager, that I didn't anticipate how I would deal with it is like getting my team to do the things they don't want to do. Like, please eat your peas so that you can eat your ice cream. It's like, we have a new mantra. If it's not documented, it's not done, but nobody wants to document stuff, so their projects never close out. And it's the worst part of my job, making people eat their peas, but that's it. So there you go.
What about you, Amy?
Okay, yes, my most tedious part of my job is budgeting. Everything to do with budget is just not my flavor of coffee. And so I'm fortunate I have some good admins to rely on, but it's still a lot of work. And planning, part of budgeting is planning on what you don't know. So like anticipating the needs of the people and the systems that you don't even know exist yet. For cities, that's how we budget. It's it's very difficult to justify that and conceptualize that, and to move projects forward, to work with other teams to convince them that, hey, you should collaborate on this and we'll have this amazing solution. It's just, there doesn't seem like enough time in the day to make that happen. That for me is the most tedious part of my job.
Meg, it's all you. It's all you.
Guys, it's the meetings and the emails, y'all. I am used to being a grunt and just, chugging along on my little projects that I am assigned to do, and moving into the supervisor role. I have now doubled the amount of meetings and doubled the amount of emails, and going through and filing that away and taking like the pertinent information from meetings away. That's been, I swear I feel like I would spend half my work day in a meeting or reading emails. So, if there was anything, I get that is, don't get me wrong, guys, I get it's important sometimes, but it is probably what I feel like the most tedious thing.
Yeah, and that's really hard for GIS people in general, because we're an enterprise technology, right? I wholeheartedly believe, from gospel of me, that there's not a single department in your organization that cannot use GIS, right? So if you are doing the thing and you are spreading the good word of GIS, you are in lots of meetings with lots of departments, becoming a subject matter expert in their industry, so that you can help them do the thing, right? And so it's like, yeah, I get the 1 day of work a week, because the other 4 days are meetings with other people trying to get the work done for them. Totally crazy. All right, so let's roll. What were the kids say? Let's slide on in to some of these audience questions. And this one's totally cool, right? Because it kind of goes into our theme of like project management, and how do we know what work we're doing? How do we know if our work is successful? And it says, how do you keep track of large numbers of projects? How do you stay organized? So for me, Outlook things, and like now we have Jira, but before we were, when I was a manager, we had a solar wind shop. And so we did like, I was kind of proud of this. We did the Esri patterns of use as our tickets, right? So when there was a thing, it's like, oh, hey, this is whatever. I can't name a pattern of use right now. It's been a week. But that's how we organize our shop, is we have these tickets and they're project based, and you say, hey, this is kind of what we're doing here. So we could, at the end of the year, have a printout of like, hey, where do we spend most of our time? All right, so I'm gonna let y'all talk. Whoever wants to talk, Nick. I think it's Nick. Here we go.
Yeah, as far as tracking goes, I write everything down in a notebook, because if I don't, I will absolutely forget it. It helps me reinforce that I have a project going on. Now I keep track of it digitally as well. I keep a Microsoft OneNote that has all the different project pages and categories of things, and everything's, priority projects, midterm projects, short-term projects, things like that. But yeah, I have multiple notebooks full of project information, just because if I don't write it down, it'll go right out the back of my head. And for the really, really big major stuff, I've got wide erase boards back there and that's where all of my big projects go. So I see them, and you can't see them right now, but they're in big letters and dry erase marker, so that I don't forget them. But yeah, I just have to write it down. Unfortunately, that becomes an issue because I have 3 or 4 notebooks, and I don't know which notebook has the project I'm looking for. So be careful with that. It can get tough to stay organized. So yeah, that's my nightmare.
Love it, Nick. I love people who are like, I gotta have an artifact. It's like it has to exist in the real world. Because it's like I'm envious. I want to be you, and then you're like, and then I have 3 books, and I'm juggling to figure out. My brain says it's like halfway through, so like that's a bit much. Anyone else want to talk about how they're organizing their shop? Go, Jess. Here we go.
Yeah, I thought I would share a little bit. We're going through a transformation right now of kind of like everybody having their collection or portfolio of projects to trying to leverage the team more. And so we're moving from just like this big spreadsheet of projects and everybody kind of puts what they're working on in it to a more agile approach. I wouldn't say we're doing Scrum. I wouldn't say we're doing like full on Kanban, but we're trying to use some of these like tools in the way we manage our work and then have a more collaborative approach to executing on it. We're very new. We're like at the very beginning of this process, but we're definitely open. So if anybody out there has like a system that they feel like it just works really well, we'd love to hear from you and steal all your ideas to make sure that we're kind of bringing those things into account. We have like a new a way we prioritize our projects now, and it's a little bit ridiculous with some projects scoring like 100,000 points, but it's also fun to see 100,000 points on your priority board. So yeah, so just challenge. We use Smartsheet as our main tool for tracking. Yeah.
And I think this kind of dovetails into that, and it is how do you balance all of your year-month goals inside your shop? So for me, I think this kind of falls into the bucket of capability, maturity modeling, strategic planning, strategic vision, that kind of stuff. Who has a hot take they'd like to, or well, I guess we can go through the board real quick, like who does that, right? Because I get that, like when you first roll into your role, it's like I'm just trying to keep the lights on, right? And it's hard to, you got to consciously make time. And when you make time, it's like, and then I got to build the big document, and that's 40 hours worth of work. So I will. Oh, Liz, Liz the panelist. All right, Liz, I'll hop in here.
You said in the chat to raise your hand, so it took me 2 minutes to find the damn button to raise my hand.
I was thinking like emoji reaction to the question, but
Oh, okay, all right. Sorry, I didn't follow the.
We love you,
exactly
Liz.
Right.
Anyone on the panel? You guys got some. You guys doing some capability maturity model? Oh, we can do like yes, no.
Big fan
I
of
see.
Slim Jim.
Yes, yeah, Jess and Sarah. Let's do this.
I was gonna say big fan of Slim Jim, hoping to reinvigorate an effort this year and to update our strategic plan. And we do set goals and then create projects to support those outcomes that we want to achieve. And then within our Smartsheet, we can like tag the projects that we feel like move us forward, either on our team goals, a department goal, maybe a city strategic initiative, so that when people ask us, what have you done for me lately? I can just like filter and then get that list to say, well, here's how we help move the needle in all these different areas. So.
That's awesome that you're able to answer that question like on the spot. I love that. I was kind of going like a maybe sort of I do long-term planning, or I guess my group manager encourages me to, I guess, participate in that and give him ideas. We did do a capability assessment a few years ago. We are wanting to do it again. But as far as like balancing, I think there was a question about balancing these long-term goals with short-term goals. I think it's kind of looking at the due date and then working it backwards. So knowing, okay, this project is due next week. So I probably need to devote a lot more time to that, but also blocking out an hour or 2 hours every week to work on those longer term things to know that when that deadline rolls around in a few months, you know, we're good to go on that. And I love utilizing like calendar reminders and events set months ahead of the due date. So it's like a reminder, hey, start this process 3 months before this report is due, so that we have time to, you know, assemble everything. And then a month before it's due, you know, it's another reminder, hey, are we on track to meet that long-term goal?
Beautiful. I love it. That's so great. You know, because it's like, hey, I got the Outlook reminder, and like this 3-month project is due tomorrow. Like that's not a recipe for success. So like having
But
due dates.
yeah, also have the follow through with you, and you see the reminder, actually go work on it. It's too easy to just snooze it, but
Yeah, respecting the outlook is hard. You know, and that's one of the ways that I try to organize my time. Like, hey, I'm doing this thing. Outlook says I'm doing this thing, so I got to do the thing. Okay, so this is the part of the webinar where I'm like, oh, I want to respect y'all's time or whatever. So I'm gonna try to respect y'all's time. Panelists, if you gotta drop at 1, feel free to drop at 1. Audience members, I'm not keeping you here against your will. I'm gonna kind of let it roll until it rolls. And I didn't tell anyone that until just now. It just popped in my head. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a round robin kind of closing thoughts of you know, what advice would you have for yourself to get your first job, to get your first management job. And the context for me on this is I've got a question that I wanted an answer on, and it's becoming a GIS manager is often like a chicken and egg problem. It's like your future employer's HR wants someone with supervisory experience, right? But there is no like, I was birthed supervising people, and now I have supervisory experience as an analyst, right? So supervisors have to come from somewhere. They don't just like appear into the ether. So that was my thing. It's like, man, like we all went through that. And so for our closing thoughts of like advice you give yourself, if one of those little nuggets of advice could kind of touch on to like, how do you make yourself look like supervisory material without having like the structured opportunity of being a supervisor? And Meg, it sounds like, is going to make us go alpha on this. We're going to do regular alpha order. So these are going to be our closing remarks. And then again, if it's a 1 you got to drop, just say you got to drop in the chat, and we'll just kind of stay for a little bit, you know, because I love this stuff, and I'm selfish, and I want that in my life. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Assuming you work in a shop in which you have a good relationship with management and your supervisor, et cetera, and this is from a standpoint of, you know, not being in management and going into management, I would say, obviously, talk to that person, talk to your supervisor, talk to your manager, and let them know you have an interest in XYZ. And I say that because, you know, I spent 13 years at the city of Frisco, and, you know, every year we have an evaluation, right? And during those evaluations, guess what? I was just like, okay, yeah, cool, I got a raise. Next, yeah, cool, I got a raise. Next. I never really got into the habit of saying, okay, you know what? This is what I want to do with my career. This is what I'm interested in. This is what you know, where I want to lead. Now, that being said, I will admit here and now that I was a very reluctant supervisor candidate. My peak was senior GIS analyst, if I'm being really honest. But, you know, I got into this role because I wanted that challenge. And not only that, but I saw how important it was to have this role here within the city. You know, they emphasized how important it was. And I grew to care about the organization that I work for. And if you're lucky, you will work for an organization that you actually, pardon my French, give a shit about, you know? So like you want to be in that position. You want to be lucky enough to be in that position. So yes, coasting indeed.
Amy, you're up.
Okay, can you restate the question one more time?
Advice to yourself if you were like not a manager and you want like, now that I'm a manager and I got a time machine, you give yourself your best advice.
Sorry, I'm hungry and I just dazed off. That's a really good point. I see this a lot with candidates that are coming in, you know, trying to level up, and that's what it is at the end of the day. Within your current responsibilities? Are you leveling up? And if you are, put that on your resume. Talk about that in your interview. Don't just say like, we did this project. Like, hey, I took charge of this task. I ensured that everything was delivered on time. We faced this problem, but I found a solution. You know, my teammates helped me do this, but I did this. So, you know, there's a lot of leadership skills that you are probably developing if you want to be a manager. So make sure you showcase them. Don't shy from that. Be very clear, like you have leadership skills and this is why. And then take on more work than you are expected to do when it makes sense, so that you can talk about that in those interviews. So even like in your volunteer time, you may decide to take on some additional work and lead a project. There you go. That is something to talk about in an interview.
I think my advice is probably, I might be the oddball out here. And I'm gonna have the vulnerable moment and share something that I've learned after being in this role, which is I'm not sure, like I was challenging myself to try something new, to move out of my comfort zone from more of like a technical path to a management path. And I really miss that technical path. And I wish I would have talked more. So if I were going to give advice to myself, I wish I would have paid closer attention to what my managers were actually spending their time on, how they, you know, what they were being asked to do. I wouldn't change my choices because I've learned so much and grown to appreciate this role, but it's really, it's going to be different at every city. But, you know, I'm finding out that if you're not a strong project manager, one, that's okay. And two, being the GIS manager might not be the job for you. If you don't really like to sell stuff or get out there and you're not like extroverted, like shooting the breeze in the hallway all the time, again, maybe not the best job for you. And that's okay. You know, I think that for me, I've been able to find my place in the job, but it's definitely a different type of position. So really doing that soul searching and understand, like, are you just wanting to get a different title, or are you wanting to challenge yourself? And like, what are you really looking for in your career? And that's hard to do when you're young, I would say. It certainly was for me. I'm 22 years into this thing. So I think it's really requires a bit of soul searching, but I would also encourage anybody, like I did, you have that gut feeling that's nudging you forward, encouraging you to try something, you should try it. And if you find someone that'll give you an opportunity, all the better for them and for you. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and shout out to that, right? I was a manager, right? That's a past tense thing. And the thing that I'm doing now is data engineering and automation, all of my happy place things, because I wanted to spend more time in my happy place. So that's it's easy, yeah, it's easy to chase the money on it. But you can also end up being incredibly unhappy with that management role if you're not like totally into it and totally sold into the mission of what your job is, which is like building the GIS and spreading the good word. Go ahead, Sarah.
Oh, well, I think the first three people have already really well covered it. Yeah, I would say definitely that introspection of knowing maybe, yeah, you to an extent you have to be a bit extroverted, but also just be happy and enjoy talking with people about GIS problems. I think fundamentally, yeah, you are not really going to be doing a lot of the technical work, but if you find passion in just talking to people about their problems and guiding them through that, then maybe management is for you. Maybe some advice that, in addition to asking your manager for that extra responsibility, I guess be comfortable with taking on that extra responsibility without the extra pay for at least a little while and getting that track record. And just echoing what Amy already said, making sure that when you apply to a job, take that introspective moment and write down, what have I done to show that I'm a leader, that I've taken things on myself, and please put that in your resume so that we know that you have this experience going forward. Make sure you have that written down. And just keep looking for that opportunity. It is definitely a chicken and egg, but there will be an opportunity for you. So just keep looking for it.
I want to echo Sarah's sentiment on passion for what you do. I mean, pride in your work and being proud of what you've done and accomplished, even if it's something as small as menial GIS, tech work. It's all of that is puzzle pieces to a much bigger picture, and it is so much. There's so much pride whenever you do get to accomplish something, or at least be a part of that accomplishment. So, and like everybody said, like Amy, yeah, put that on your resume, please. Like, take note of what you did and put on the resume.
Right, Nick, you're gonna top us off, and then after Nick, we got a bonus question I'm gonna tee up again. If you got to drop, drop. If you don't. And so this bonus question, so we can like ruminate on it before Nick gives his closing remarks, is what are you most proud of implementing inside? Like once you became manager, you're like, what if you like made a new department, you inherited a department, what's the thing that you implemented that you were super stoked about? And then like the flip side of that coin, if you inherited something, what's the thing that you set on fire and murdered and are so proud of doing? All right, Nick, closing remarks, and then we're into after hours bonus party, I guess.
Yes. As far as advice goes, I mean, I obviously don't manage anybody, so that's hard to say. But I will say that I don't manage anybody in my job, but I manage people through volunteering with Series-Sept Texas. I lead one of the committees, and I'm also on the board of directors. So being able to kind of direct some of that work, it counts. And like Sarah has said as well, put it on your resume. If you're a committee chairperson or a director or something, that counts as supervisor. You're leading people. And then I know a couple of people have also mentioned the projects. Take charge of a project in your team and show that I've led this project, and even though I'm not technically in charge of anybody, I've pulled in other people from the team and we're working together, but I'm leading these people in this team. That all counts. You don't that whole chicken and egg thing. It's very difficult starting in to say, oh, you're in as a manager. These are the people you're reporting to. And sometimes you can be like me and you can skip from entry-level GIS analyst 1 to GIS manager. I skipped everything in between. I didn't do analyst 2. I didn't do senior analyst. I didn't do any of that. Literally skipped from beginning to end, essentially. So and it was just one of those weird kind of found myself in that situation. Which is the other piece of my advice: get a mentor. Talk to people who are managers. Like, you're attending this stuff. There are several managers here in this chat. Talk to us. Get a mentor, have somebody, and yes, put in the mentoring program, but that's not necessary either. Any mentor. How I got this job was, David Allen was my mentor, both in school and when I took over this job. So it was great. But that's pretty much my advice. So.
Okay, so we're moving on. Bonus question 1 is the flip side question is, what are you super proud of implementing at your department? What are you super proud of murdering, setting on fire, burying the body in a shallow grave? And then bonus question 2 that we're going to talk about is resume stuff. We're going to, like hiring and things, and like maybe what you look on if you're a hiring manager, what you look on for a resume that comes your way. Probably should have been a mainline question, but we all make mistakes. All right, so whoever wants to start can start, and we'll just keep rolling.
As someone who just had to hire a GIS tech pretty recently, I'll be honest, in our shop, we're kind of looking for GIS tech skills, and that's mostly because our department is pretty centralized and we support all of their departments. And so, until we know where they're going to fit in really and what kind of work they're going to be doing, for the most part, at least for a GIS tech role, we do look at, GIS tech skills. And then we kind of like teach them on the job, the departmental, what you learn from each department within the city, et cetera. But to be honest, it's like, it really does depend on the position. If we're hiring for a GIS analyst, we might look for a little bit more, of the more specialized type skills, but for the most part, yeah, we're looking for GIS tech skills here. And we're also looking for intangibles. We want to know that you want to, come to work here, that you're actually interested in GIS, that, this is something that you want to do long term, et cetera. So.
Thanks so much, Amy. Things you're proud of implementing, things you're proud of setting on fire?
I'm very much a status quo person. I guess that's why I'm in government. But yeah, I killed a lot of meetings that kind of were on repeat. That's one way that we manage projects here in Public Works and Houston Water in general is we will have ongoing meetings like every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks until it gets done. And so there's like an ongoing agenda in the project, in the Outlook, just week after week of what's going on. And after a while, there's just too many of those that just nothing was happening. It wasn't needed anymore. The needs of the organization changed. So anytime I could nix one of those, I was very happy. And then implementing, I would say the utility network. That's definitely not something I had put on my goal list. And it's happening, and so it's a big deal. And there's just so much more work and projects and opportunities there in the future. So it's really just like setting the baseline for what we can do in the future. So it's pretty exciting to be a part of that.
Love it. Love it. Jess?
I think for me, it's the thing I'm most proud of is the team that's coming together, the GIS team that's coming together in IT. When I first started, we were a team of 2. Now we're a team of 6 in just over 3.5 years. It has not been an easy, smooth, or beautiful ride. It's like we are very much like challenged. It's been difficult. I've made 1,000 mistakes. I'm still learning, but I think just being willing to learn, willing to make the mistakes and try again and keep showing up for the challenges for me has been like the thing I'm most proud of. And then the thing I'm most proud of like killing is like some of the silly things that were being done to manage the environment when I first got here. Like they were like, well, do we use our Outlook accounts or do we use our database accounts to do this? And then I'm like, it's not written down how you do it. So just creating a better structure for how work gets done and how we manage the system. I think we're still working on it, still getting those things written on paper so other people can feel confident executing against it. But hopefully like that'll be a good solid legacy that this group of people can leave with the city. So yeah.
Nick?
As far as implementing, I think the thing I'm most proud of is that we are currently still implementing our CityWorks for asset management. That was the big project that came in when I came on board, and that was a huge reason why I got hired is because this was coming in, and this was kind of David's last hurrah before he retired and then immediately got hired at somewhere else. It's going well, and the thing I'm most proud of about it is the feedback we've gotten from all of the users, these non-GIS folks that are using this software that's totally new and foreign to them. And especially on our public works field ops guys, these are guys that, they're not as tech savvy as, we would like them to be, but they have been on board 100% since we started implementation. They have been engaged in all of the training. They're asking questions that surprise me on how thoughtful and insightful these questions are. They want to know how this stuff works, and being able to see that and show them, this is how our GIS is tying into this asset that you're using, and the different ways you can use it now. And it's been fantastic ever since. And we're still going through that with our permitting and building inspector folks right now. And a lot of them, I'm seeing a lot of the same feedback. They're real excited about it. So being a part of that implementation has been awesome. As far as the things I'd like to kill, I don't think David's on this call. So I wouldn't say I'd like to kill some things. I haven't had an opportunity to yet. There are some changes I would like to make, some holdovers from the way he did things that are outdated. We'll just say it that. We'll leave it at that. Some holdovers from the ArcMap days and that just haven't been updated fully for pro and for modern audiences and things like that. A lot of our applications are still kind of old looking, and they need to be upgraded. So I said I'm not necessarily going to kill any of the things that he did, because David was in this role for 34 years and left me a fantastic system to inherit. So I didn't have to do a lot of that work, which is great. But it needs a lot of updating. So that's kind of what I'm going to be doing for the next probably year or two, is just updating a lot of that stuff.
And obviously,
Okay.
I feel like a super spicy way of talking. When you're in a one-person shop, you really have to prioritize like keeping everything running, doing all the requests and stuff. So it's like, hey, we have an app that works. am I going to spend 40 hours making a new one? Probably not, because I got other stuff to do. So to me, that just screams like, yo, I need to hire more people, right? But yeah, no. David knows he's good. He loves it. Meg, do you want to talk about things you implemented and things you murdered?
Yeah, because I totally answered the wrong question the first time around. I'm totally going to circle back and say, to be honest, I've been so new in this role, and for a big portion of it, it was a lot of hand holding because my GIS manager at the time had quit right as I got into the supervisory role. And so, me trying to figure stuff out without, well, I wouldn't say without any help, because I did have a lot of help from Susan Olson, who's actually the assistant director of IT here in Frisco, and she actually, started the GIS in the city of Frisco. So I'm not going to say I didn't have any help. I totally had her help, but someone who is there, like in the trenches with me, basically, that was something that was difficult to get used to. And so, I don't know if I could say I have implemented anything, because like I said, a lot of hand holding the first couple months into my foray as supervisor. That being said, there are a lot of things I'd like to kill. uh, you know, there's outdated data schemas, in our database that after looking it over, after all the things that we're starting to try to implement and do, I'm here like, well, where did this come from? What is this even, And so, I mean, I've been here for 13 and a half years, and I'm still finding stuff that I'm like, what is this? Like, who named this thing? So, I'm not gonna totally call out anything, but yeah, I will say that, there are definitely some things I'd like to kill, but they're gonna remain anonymous for the time being. So
Love it. Yeah, one of the first things I did is I was like, I'm not installing an ArcMap on anyone else's computer. You got ArcMap on your computer, that's fine. I'm not upgrading it. I'm not doing anything. I'm not giving you a new license. You're going to use ArcGIS Pro. We're going to do best practices, and we're all going to go kicking and screaming together, right? That was fun. Implementing ticketing systems, right? So I've always been in places where like ticketing has not been great. Like, how do you know you're even doing any work? Right? It's like you got to track your time, y'all. How am I supposed to get more employees if you guys aren't tracking all your time and showing how great the work is doing? So that's stuff I implemented, stuff I killed. Okay, so the next question, right, is about hiring. I think a lot of people are like, okay, yeah, let's talk about how I get a new job, how I get a better job. And so I'll start, and it's gonna say, if you just put your job description in your resume, not being helpful, right? You really do need to pick some like cool project-based things. Probably should have a portfolio somewhere. If you're fresh out of school, right, and this is your first job, don't just put your school in the classes you took, right? Because I don't know your school. I'm not going to do research into your school to see if you have a good program or not. I've got opinions about programs, but I mean, like, that's not my job to do research onto like every resume that comes in. So you're not doing anyone any benefits by doing that thing, right? If you want to put a class, you got to like put like, hey, we did this, and this, and these are the skills, blah, blah, blah. And that's for like resume stuff. And then in an interview, right, you want to be personable. If you made it to the interview, that means like, I've already flipped a coin, and I would probably be okay hiring you. So the interview is like your chance to show, hey, I'm an actual human person, and I'm excited about working here, and I'm not just here because like I sent out 200 resumes and this is the only place that called me back. So that's that's my hot take advice on that. Nick, do you want to start us off with some resume tips, some hiring tips, things you're looking for? I mean, I get it's gonna be theoretical for you a little bit, but give us your, I'm assuming you're hiring tomorrow.
Well, I will be not tomorrow, but I am talking about getting an intern next year. So we're getting there. They will let me have an intern. I don't think I'll get more than that, but we'll see. Again, that's not till 2025, so don't come looking for me just yet. But as far as like resumes and stuff go, not humble brag, my resumes have usually been pretty decent. I've never had any negative feedback on them. I've usually been told they're pretty good resumes, but it's the hardest thing about resumes is being concise and being to the point and being brief. You've only got a certain amount of space to put stuff in, so you really have to think about what it is your job is. and what it is you do, and try to make that into a couple of points. 4 points maximum per job is typically what I try to go with. 5 if it's a recent job. And then as I'm updating my resume, I'll go back to the older jobs, my first or second jobs, and I'll start taking things off of those and shortening those to give me more room for my more recent jobs, which has been really helpful. The other part of that is don't wait until you're applying to jobs to update your resume. Once you get a job, immediately start updating your resume with the new job stuff. Immediately start putting it in, because you will forget it. If you've been, in a job for 5 or 6 years, and now all of a sudden you're trying to move somewhere else and you're like, well, what did I do when I first started here? Like, what can I add? Like, you got to think back. It's impossible. You can't do it. Write that stuff down, start a new version every time you get a new job. Just do that. And it'll save you a lot of time. That goes towards your LinkedIn profile as well. Keep that up to date, because people look at that LinkedIn profile. Sometimes they'll find that before they find your resume. In fact, I got a job interview for a GIS position several years ago that I never applied for and didn't know about. The person just happened to find my LinkedIn profile that I kept up to date, because school, it was a school project. I had to keep it up to date. And I got an interview before I even applied to that job, which was fantastic. And I didn't get that job, but that job led to me, volunteering with the University of Texas and being here today doing this. So it was a whole thing there. So you'd be amazed at how people look at that stuff. I talk to a lot of people now, even some GIS managers that don't have any presence whatsoever on LinkedIn. It's amazing how useful that is, and just being able to connect with people. So that's kind of my 2 cents.
Jess?
I was just going to type in the chat that I'm going to snoop on Nick's LinkedIn page to see what I should be putting in there for myself. Yeah, I think for me, when I'm looking, okay, I'm terrible at a lot of things at this position. So if you're starting out new and you feel like you're terrible, please call me and we can just commiserate, because it's probably not as bad as you think. But I definitely am not really good at noticing red flags. So for me in hiring, it's important that I include like a panel, that I have other people looking at things from different directions, because I tend to see the best in all people. But I've gotten better, thanks to Jordan, at just evaluating applications, because I think he had sent something to the Tag It On post about like a rubric for scoring applicants. And I was like, oh, perfect. Like, it helps me be a little bit more objective when looking at resumes and applications before I like try to read in and create some story about the people or meet them and have a good warm feeling, but maybe they're not the best fit. So that's was helpful for me, is to have more objective criteria. And then feedback for applicants is to be more specific. I think as your career unfolds, and your resume is going to look different when you're earlier in your career versus in the middle or towards the end. And what I've noticed, and what I wish I could tell people that have applied to my positions, is be more specific in the descriptions of what you've done with the technologies that you've used or the outcomes that you've attained, because you might put a line and I can tell a story about what that means, but it may not be right. And back to the previous thing about looking with rose-colored glasses, it's like, I might tell the wrong story. And so that's why I have people that help me also evaluate and say, well, this person, their resume is kind of weak. And I'm like, but probably what they did is XYZ. Well, who knows if it's not there. So just really encourage folks that are younger in their career to be specific about the technologies and the workflows and the tools and the this and the that, and just pack it in there, because we don't know if you don't tell us. So there you go. That's my advice.
Yeah.
Can I tack on to that? Just
go.
Say that, whatever you put on your resume, make sure it's relevant to the actual job. I've gotten weird stuff on resumes. Like, I worked at Jimmy John's and I make sandwiches, and I'm like, that's fantastic. But how does that relate to GIS? And you would think that would be common sense, but apparently it is not. So, I'm not saying that there's anybody in the audience that doesn't already know that, but I feel like I've just seen a whole lot of weird resumes. I felt like that needed to be clear.
A counter to that, right? If you're fresh out of school, I want to see Jimmy John's on your resume. I don't want to see like, yo, I made the peanut butter and jellies. super good.
I get what you're saying.
You know, but
make
I
sure
want
it
you to be like,
applies somehow. Like
yeah,
spin
well,
it.
like skills, customer service, fast-paced
Yes,
environment. You know, it's like this was a great thing, and I'm excited about working with people in a more technical
I could
capacity.
see that if it was presented to me that way.
Yeah, but I like, you know, I know how to make all 50 items in the menu. Like, bless. Maybe we should hire this person so that like they can like elevate our lunch hour. I don't know. But yeah, no, I feel you. I feel you. Amy, you got some fresh hiring advice?
I got some hot tips. Hot tips. Um, so at my department in 24 positions, we're at 47% staffing right now. So we have a lot of vacancies. And so hiring's been like my life for the past month and a half consistently. So I get to see a lot of applications. I get to see a lot of different skill sets. And I think, overall, echoing at what everyone has said, totally. Look at the job you're applying for, look at the description, and then put in your resume the things that you did that match that description. That is going to make your resume like top. That's what we want. Like, that's what I'm looking for, right? When I'm looking at a senior analyst and I say, this is what my senior analyst does, I'm looking for the resume that says, hey, I do this, I did just these projects, and that matches. So it's like, make it easy for the hiring person. Go, this is what the position says. This is what my resume says. If you've done that type of work, elevate that, do those 4 points that Nick mentioned on those things. Portfolio, super, will put you at the top of the list if you have a portfolio, because because whenever you get applications, some people don't get interviews. So you want to make it to the interview. So when you have like that easy to read resume, when your application is correct. So sometimes with like the cities, you have to type in an application, which is very annoying as an applicant to have to basically copy paste from your resume sometimes. Make sure it all matches, making sure you're taking the time to do it right, that you don't accidentally answer the question wrong, because the systems will kick you out if you answer the question wrong. So even if your resume is top notch, if you accidentally answer one of those questions wrong, that you go rush through, you will get knocked out. I've seen that happen before. And we cannot do anything about it because it was your mistake. And it's just very sad. So just take your time. And on the portfolios, what happens is we can see in words what you've done, and the portfolio gives the interview panel a chance to say, not only can this person do all this stuff, they do it really well. I can look at this and say they really know what they're doing. So it's hard to convey that in just a resume and application. But when you have that portfolio, that's the point of it, is to show, hey, here's not a bunch of reports, but here's a bunch of really good, excellent work that I'm very good at. And you just want to highlight that so that people can really see that you should be interviewed. Once you get to the interview, just make sure you're prepared for those questions, making sure that you can understand, why do employers ask those questions? Why would somebody ask me if I work well with people? Have that understanding about the question so that you can provide the right answer that we want to hear, right? When you go into that interview, be confident. The people that are interviewing you want to hire you. We want to hire you. So make it easy. Say all the right things. Know about the job. Understand, what department you're hiring, like you're walking into, and who you're talking to. That is such a big deal. If somebody actually knows what we do here at Houston Water, have any concept of it, you go to the top of the list. And it's very rare to find that. So those are my hot tips.
Helps
Love
with
it.
intangibles too. Like, as far if you can speak on the work that you've done and articulate it well, it says volumes about your intangibles, because it knows that we're more aware of what you're confident in doing, and your self-awareness, really. So
If anyone's gonna know, right, that hey, I make maps. Okay, as a GIS person, I know. I'm fairly certain you make maps, right? But like, what kind of apps on what? How are you doing on data? Are you doing the hygienics on it? Like, you make any apps? Well, ArcGIS Online, yeah. But like, you do a whatever, a dashboard. Have you done a experience builder? Everyone hates experience builder. If you walked into an interview and like, I'm an experience builder master, it's like, there you go, top of the list. So I saw a question here in the chat that I really love. And it's, do any of the presenters utilize a live GIS screening during the interview process? So for me, right, I had a GIS skills test, only because right? We were a small shop doing outsized work. And so I didn't want to teach someone how to use ArcGIS Pro if you only ever used ArcMap. So I built a tasks thing inside of ArcGIS Pro. And it's like, hey, here's 5 tasks, choose one and do it, right? And that will show me real quick, have you used ArcGIS Pro or not, right? Because it's not like rocket science stuff. It's very simple things, right? But you either know it or you don't. So if you're still using ArcMap, right, start using ArcGIS Pro. But that was the screening we did. And then I always had everyone on my team sit in on the interview process, so that if anyone's got like I got a bad feeling about this, they'd be able to speak up. Because if you're working on a team, your teammates are people too, and they've got to work with that person. You might like them because of their skill set, but if they rub everyone the wrong way, that's going to be a problem down the road. So anyone else want to talk about maybe a skills assessment they might do in their interviews? And if you don't, that's fine. You don't have to. That's just me.
I tried to do a skills assessment when we were hiring the GIS tech, and it was basically just a basic task that we have our tech do like as their normal job function. And I did not plan that very well, so I'm not sure if I were to try and do it again. I'd have to get suggestions from others that have actually successfully done an assessment test, just because the way I tried to do it, I don't think it bode well for the techs that were applying and trying to actually do the process. Because, with GIS, there's so many different ways to do something. And so, like, trying to assess when you're used to doing something one way and they're doing it a totally different way, and you're trying to figure out, okay, well, will this really work with our environment, etc. It was hard for me to really bridge that gap. So I will say, I'm here looking for ideas from any of y'all on how you guys did a skills assessment test for any of these types of positions.
All right, we're gonna hear from Amy next. I'm whatever. I don't really respect anyone's time, right? I love this. I want to stay all day. So I guess we can start trying to wind down. I'm not really going to put my heart into winding down, but maybe if we're done by 1:45, we can all be happy or whatever. But I want to hear from Amy. I want to hear from everyone. This is so great. I love this. Again, it's going to be recorded, so everyone that had to drop, they'll be able to hear all of these nuggets of wisdom. So go ahead.
I definitely do. Ever since I got my very first GIS management role, I felt like it was very important to do a skills assessment, because I've seen just firsthand, like, people coming out of different GIS programs, they're at a different level. And so if I don't have the time to train someone on certain things, I'm always going to train, love training. I'm always in training too. But whenever the role requires you have this core knowledge, I need to make sure they have that core knowledge. So for me, kind of like Jess said, she has some difficulties there judging character or whatnot. I also am the same way. And so I spend a lot of energy trying to judge someone, what they're talking about. But when it comes to the technology, I mean, we all know we can BS through a lot of things. You can read some blogs and talk really good, but that's great. That's great to be able to talk through those things. But if you're just talking in generalities, I'm suspicious. And so then when you get to the part of the skill assessment, it just becomes very obvious. Like, yes, this person has used ArcPro. Yes, they've used ArcMap. Yes, they've made a map before. They know how to convert a table to spatial data. They know how to do these things that actually my skill assessments come from real work requests. That's where they come from. And so we just kind of put it on a piece of paper. We're like, tell us how you would do this. And anyone who's ever done any kind of GIS should be able to talk through it. And if they haven't done that specific thing, they can say, hey, I've never done that, but here's how I would do it. So we always want to encourage people to just talk through it, because like Meg said, it can be very difficult to do those assessments, but those are, and then also scenarios. We ask scenario questions. If you, depending on your level of work, if you're supposed to handle new projects, then you need to be able to handle someone coming to you and saying, here's my problem, GIS person, help me. You don't have to know all the right answers, but you have to have someplace to talk about. You have to have something to talk through with them. And so just be prepared to talk about the latest technologies, the solutions, when you would use one application form versus another. and just be aware that even if you've never done them, you can kind of say, hey, I've never done this, but I think I would approach it this way. I would use survey 1, 2, 3, or, that's all I can really say about our assessments.
So if I could just like jump on that super quick, right? There are some people out in the world that are horrible individuals that love to micromanage and think that their job is spending all day telling other people exactly what to do step by step. That's not my flavor. That's not what I'm about. So when I was doing hiring, I'm looking for people that are going above and beyond, that are showing that they can work independently and that they have like some personal motivation. Because one, I didn't have time to do that. And two, even if I did have time to do that, if you're the kind of horrible person that like that's your thing, one, you should be a manager. And two, you shouldn't want to work for that kind of manager. All right, go ahead, Meg. Sorry to throw that super hot take out the oven.
No, I was gonna just thank Amy for that, for that explanation, because I really did have a hard time. I feel like I've missed out on a lot of good techs that we could have potentially hired, just because I was looking for something so specific and narrow, not realizing, wow, I could have gotten, some really, really good potential people in here. And, I feel like to me that was a huge learning opportunity for me. Cause I mean, when we were hiring for the tech position, I wasn't quite a supervisor yet, but I was kind of being groomed into it. And I got to sit in on some of these interviews, and we were literally looking for techs with all these experience. Come to realize later on, well, any tech with any amount of significant experience isn't looking to be a tech anymore. They're looking to be an analyst, and it was like once that realization came in, I was like, well, no wonder we can't hire anybody. It's we're looking for analysts when we're really trying to hire a tech. And so, I feel like I said, there's a lot of joining this panel. I mean, one of the main motivators for me was to be surrounded by folks like y'all that can give me insight on some of this, because super new in this role. So very happy to be here.
Yeah, I actually do have a point about hiring somebody. So I've obviously not hired anybody in this position, but when I worked previously for City of Fort Worth, I did have to hire somebody, and I forgot about this until just now. The person I ended up hiring this was for a GPS surveying position. It was not GIS. The person I hired had 0 GPS experience out of all the applicants. He was the only one that had no GPS experience at all. He'd never touched a GPS receiver, didn't know anything about it, but his attitude and just the way he demonstrated that he wanted to learn new things and that he was committed to learning these new technologies and new processes that he'd not familiar with, it sold me on him for sure. The other 2 people that applied had been doing GPS surveying for 10, 15, 20 years, longer than I had been a surveyor. One of them was, at city management level in his career, and somehow he wanted to be a survey technician, which was odd to me. The other guy that applied was the surveyor in that position, just in a different department in the city. So it would have been a lateral move. He was perfect for that position. I didn't hire him. I didn't hire the other guy. I hired the guy that had no experience at all. And it was the best decision I made. I never regretted it. I worked with him for 4 years directly, and he was great. And he learned so much. And when I finally left that job back into GIS, I was confident that he knew what he was doing, because I knew I could teach him. I knew he would learn and he would stick with it. So the experience matters, but sometimes it doesn't. So, sometimes it's more than the experience. So I'll say that.
Hey, Jordan, I also wanted to clarify that the GIS tech I did hire is actually phenomenal. He didn't have a whole lot of experience, but that was because once I finally got to that realization of, hey, hire the guy with, that has that potential. That's the person I ended up hiring. I just wanted to clarify that in case he was on the video, he was on the Zoom and I didn't realize it. And I was, awesome hire. Just want to make sure that that's on video and recorded.
So, okay. So here's my big thing. And someone said it to me. I don't know who said it to me. I just want to throw it out into the universe that I'm not the originator of this. And it's hire for attitude, not aptitude, right? I can teach anyone anything, right? Because I'm in the everyone can cook category. I'm a rat with a powerful nose, running a bistro in France. And so I want someone that's like gung-ho. It's like, I want to work, I want to do this thing, I want to work here. that's the person I'm going to hire, because you're going to come into the office every day wanting to do stuff. And I'm like, yo, you can do this. They're stoked about learning. They're going to do it. Right. If they know everything, right, or they're like trying to convince you that they know everything, but their attitude's in the dumpster, you got to deal with that attitude every single day. And that's not healthy at all. So I think maybe, I know we're running down the clock. Let's talk a little bit. Maybe one of the last questions is, how do you train your leadership, or did you do anything to kind of prepare your leadership chops? Me personally, before I got my management position, I went to the ERISA GIS Leadership Academy. It was totally dope. Talked about all the boring administrative stuff that managers should be doing, and like the philosophy of management. And that was super helpful for me. But for y'all on the panel, what are things that you're consciously doing in your own life to be like, I can be better. I can be better at my job. I can be better at doing what I do.
I'll start, because I also went to the GIS Leadership Academy. I did the virtual one last year. That was great. And I highly recommend that to anyone who's not attended. I know they have a lot of in-person ones that can be hard to get to, but they do a virtual one every now and then. I don't know if they've announced one recently, but it was a great experience. I learned a lot from that. As far as preparing for this role, a lot of it was just professional and career development that I wanted to go through. The team that I was on previously, they were all great folks. They knew a lot about GIS. They weren't really enthusiastic or engaged, or going out of their way to learn new things. That department was and still is fiercely dependent on ArcMap, and it drives me insane. Well before I left, before I came over to ULIS, I was determined to make them go to pro, and it was a fight the entire time because they just did not want to do it. And again, they still don't. I still tell them all the time, switch. But developing those skills and taking on projects like trying to prepare the department for the transition, which is coming to pro, whether they want it or not. Before I came to ULIS, I was working hard to let's translate all of our processes to work with the new pro interface and the new SDKs and all that. Let's start upgrading our scripts. Let's start upgrading our custom tools. Let's start upgrading our maps to work in pro, so that when it comes time to actually do that, we're going to be farther along than if we wait to the last second. But just developing those skills and just taking on those weird kind of projects that no one else is really interested in is a good way to kind of prepare yourself for that. Because eventually, getting into a management position, you'll be telling people, this is what we're doing, this is what we have to do. It's good to have some practice doing that first.
Yes, Meg, you want to hop in here?
No.
I can share a little bit. There is a lot of like soft skills development that I've really enjoyed throughout my career, particularly around like communication, or like change management is really interesting to me. And so I navigate to that naturally. But I haven't really had like specific management training, if you will. I think I could probably use some, and so the Leadership Academy is like on my wish list of future things to attend, and I'm sure it'd be really helpful for me. The department that I'm a part of, IT department, they participate in SGR trainings a lot. So, and they'll have like little short series of focus training for managers and stuff to help with things. But I haven't gone to like management school, but I have always been sort of curious about leadership and tried to practice jumping in and assisting with teams where there seemed like there was an opportunity to take on work and take on projects. So just like looking for those opportunities in the flow of work that I was participating in, I would say, more than anything. Yeah, that's it.
Meg, yeah, I love hearing from you.
Yeah, I mean, now that I know about the ERISA leadership, training course or whatever, I'm definitely going to be interested in that. But as far as like what I've done to actually lead up to the supervisory role that I'm in now, a lot of it was, we do have a track within the city of Frisco that is for new supervisors or just managers and leaders that kind of gets you kind of a crash course in how to use certain systems, et cetera, and some kind of situational awareness, or I guess, emotional intelligence type courses and whatnot, all rolled on to like this HR type of thing. But other than that, no, I mean, I really didn't have a whole lot of training as far as going into the supervisory role. I feel like a lot of this was for me a sink or swim moment. So right now I'm still treading, so I'm not sure where I'm at as far as how I'm doing as a supervisor. So I'm you know, emulating Dory here. Just keep swimming, you know. So we'll see.
So I think the question is like budgeting, and I wish Amy was still here. I should have. She was like, "Yo, I hate budgeting." I should have like, yeah, about budgeting right then. And it's that we are just beyond fortunate to live in a time where we, you know, and bits and streams into the atmosphere to virtually meet each other and all that. You know, technology, Pop-Tarts, microwaves, that kind of thing. And you know, there's lots of free things around. You know, if you're an Esri shop, your whatever, your subscription fee unlocks a bunch of different courses and stuff. People all over the internet are writing all sorts of stuff, all kinds of things. You know, so there's lots of free things to do that cost you your time. However, I get that, like, at the end of the day, you need money to do things, and sometimes a structured course is easier than a non-structured course. You know, or sometimes it's nice to get that enterprise license agreement with Esri. So in your current role, what do you do around the budgeting process? You know, for me, it was budgeting the entire program, you know, so we got enterprise license agreements with Esri, with CityWorks, and then, you know, making sure that each staff position had a training budget, a travel budget, an equipment budget, all these things. So it's not just like the person comes into your shop. It's like person comes into the shop and they've got the tools they need to do the job. They've got a budget to have their computer upgraded incrementally every year, all sorts of fun things like that. So in your current role, what are you doing with budgeting?
I don't have to do anything really. No, I have to plan for things like a new server. So I'm in the terrifying position of having a production environment and only a production environment. I don't have test or development environments. It's terrifying and I don't like it. So we are planning on implementing that. So it had to do with a lot of research, meeting with our account representatives and figuring out how that's all going to work. On the hardware side, not a problem. On the enterprise side, with Esri, obviously that's a big cost. And coming in at the end of the year, I could not get it in this year's budget, so I'm gonna have to wait on that, unfortunately. So I will continue to have no backup environments for the next year at least, which is awful. That's kind of my main. Yes, Jordan, yes, I do need 3. I think I'm gonna get 2, and I think that's all they're gonna let me have. And then with the CityWorks thing is managing all the accounts, because all of the CityWorks accounts are built off of our, you know, GIS accounts in Portal, which is easy on one side. The AMS side, we have unlimited accounts. On our permitting side, we have, I think, 7, and we're well over that number now. So we're having to do a lot of consolidating people and sharing of accounts right now that we don't really want to do. So we're trying to figure out the budget on, you know, how many more accounts do we need to purchase versus do we just go ahead and get the unlimited license for that too, and just go all the way and just hopefully, you know, we don't get, you know, too much, or hopefully we're able to use that many licenses. So it's kind of my budgeting challenges.
If I could sidebar right there, if you're in an organization, right, it's the running from an alligator or running from a bear theory of like, you don't have to be the fastest, right? You just got to be faster than like the person behind you. And it's the same with budgeting is if you write your proposals better than other departments write their proposals, you will be first in line for money. So that's my take for if you're in the thing, or if you're like a regular analyst and you're asking your manager like, hey, can I write a budget item? Write the best thing. You know, most of us have like structured education in some form. So, or if you don't, get ChatGPT to help you write a fun thing of like, hey, this is the thing and this is why we need it. And, you know, just to get that compelling argument so you get funded, because there are people that are in management positions in other departments don't care and they're like, oh, we need the thing, right? Because in their heart, they're like, yeah, we need the thing, you know. But if you got your GIS hero over here and you're like, yeah, we need the thing because of this, and it's going to benefit this, and this department, and we're going to build these efficiencies, that gets funded. All right, I'm gonna be quiet. Go ahead, Jess. I think you're about to.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna share that this like managing a budget was totally new, and I probably saw it in the job description, but it didn't click as like a skill I was gonna have to learn. So I'm sure there's like a place to go and learn about managing a budget, particularly on the government side, which is a little bit different and has this like cycle that you can start to anticipate to be able to plan for and get into. I'm not sure what it would be like on the private side, but certainly for government budgeting, there is like a little bit of an art to it. And depending on the culture of your organization, I think some of what Jordan is saying is true, that it can be a challenge, particularly with some of the legislation that's happened in the recent years in Texas. And then because there's like just different demands in the city. And so there might be space to spend more money, but that's going to be divvied up amongst everybody that has needs. And so I'm pretty fortunate that we've got, like I mentioned earlier, the city's invested a lot in GIS, both in personnel and with an operating budget that we can use to either invest in consulting or data or training, not just for my staff, but also for the city as a whole. So we can bring in formal training to say, we need everybody to feel comfortable working with web maps and maybe building their own stuff. So who are those non-full-time GIS staff that need to have the skills development? And we're going to invest in that to make sure that we're moving everybody forward. So we've been pretty lucky in that way, but definitely budget management. And like, if you know how to balance your checkbook, you can manage your budget, but the system you might need to use to deal with that, it could be like really complicated, and hopefully you've got good documentation. The other teams are doing their work on that. So, oh no, don't people know what a checkbook is? Oh God, showing my age again.
Okay, so we're beyond time because I'm rude and I owned it. I told everyone what was going to happen and everyone was gracious, which I love. So first of all, thank you, audience, for staying here. Like we said, it will be posted on our YouTube channel, so very excited. So we're going to do final thoughts time afterwards. We're gonna close it down, so you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here, kind of thing. Meg, do you want to start us off with? You want to do some budget stuff and then final thoughts, and we'll call it a day. We'll call it a day.
Honestly, I really don't do any budget stuff. I assist with certain things like, gathering information and getting quotes, etc. But as far as actually like having to plan out the budget, having to write a proposal or anything to try to get money for our department, that is really outside of my realm, thank God. But I will say that, management here has done such a great job as far as highlighting the importance of GIS, within the city. It's to the point where I could go into every department and know that GIS is basically part of their workflow, for no matter what they do, really. And so, I feel like, again, like I said, it's like, I was a reluctant GIS supervisor coming into that role. But, if you're fortunate enough to find a place where you've got good people and you've got a great organization, man, lucky, super lucky. I consider myself incredibly lucky that I'm where I'm at, because it is a good spot. And so, I hope anybody that's looking for position and something like that, that you're able to find something like that in which, you get that, all those things that come together just really well. So
Final thoughts.
I'll just say thanks so much for the invitation to participate. It's been really fun hearing from the other panelists and seeing the questions. Thanks.
Yeah, also I'm glad I got to attend this, and hopefully some people got something out of it, learned a few things and are able to take this back and further their own careers or help them out in whatever it is they're doing. And thank you so much for letting me get out of a meeting I didn't want to go to at 1:30. So that's great.
Yeah, if they've got questions, you just drop my contact info and you're like, man, this guy wouldn't leave me alone. Again, thank you everyone for coming, for stopping by. If you have any questions for anyone, send us an email, info@ursatexas.org. We have speaker series questions now that you can pre-ask things. So if you want to use the same one and ask some follow-up questions, we'll try and get those done. Again, this is going to be on the YouTube. So check back in like a week or two and we'll have it up and you can see it all in its glory. My final thought for everyone that stayed on the line this far is if you want something, you've gotta kind of go out. You gotta kind of go out and get it, and you gotta make a plan for getting it. And it's hard to be like, I want a thing, but I don't know how to do a thing, right? Then find people that are that thing and ask them these questions, right? And figure out what you can do to incrementally make progress, right? Because generally your manager is not going to be the coolest person in the world and like shepherd you into that role. Some of it, like Meg was saying, right? It's like, yeah, it's like happy to get my annual raise. It's like, yeah, and maybe you want some other stuff. And yeah. So again, I'm gonna stop talking. This is our thing. If you want to volunteer for Eurus Texas, please do. That looks great on a resume. That shows some soft leadership skills. Nonprofits have access to free ESRI licensing. So all the things. And again, panelists, thank you so much. I know that I sprung everything on you from the panel to the overtime after party, right? So again, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Everyone have a great, wonderful day.
Thanks, Jordan.
Bye, guys. Thanks, Jordan.
Then do I just